I'm Mike Zone, and I've resided in Grand Rapids for the last 2 decades. I'm originally from Holland, Michigan. Well, let's get back to high school, which is a horrid time for I'd say most teenagers. But I found my poetic inspiration from Jim Morrison. And, you could say, Jim Morrison isn't that great of a poet. He came up with some great lyrics here and there, but that's what originally drew me to poetry and screenwriting. Then when I started taking English classes, in college, I just had this knack. I was like, wow, Jim Morrison writes this crazy shit. So I started writing crazy shit that didn't really make any sense. Well, eventually it started making sense because you get these words that just kind of hit you in your head. And this is where, granted, most of my training academically is in screenwriting. That's what I've been trained to do. That's what I've been pursuing for such a long time. But I put that on the back burner. Poetry is a versatile medium. This is the best way to put for me to word poetry. You paint with words, and you can take the macro and the micro. You can amalgamate it and put it in cinematic motion to the point where people are going to understand this wavelength. Maybe not right away, but there's going to be this impact that boomerangs back. It might be a few minutes after a performance or after reading a particular piece. But this is how poetry sticks with you, and this is why poetry, for me. I think imagistically. And, and we have it's terrible, and I have to say this, but 2 out of 3 high school graduates don't read after high school. They never pick up a book. Well, now we have an imagistic society. We're very visual. If you can lay that down, verbally, literary, then you can catch attention. And that's why I even work on the inciting incident. Like even comic books have influenced me. There's this comic book writer, Chuck Dixon of Detective Comics. And I remember reading this in an issue of Wizard years ago. I can't believe I'm referencing that now defunct publication. But he would always start off. I always start off with a splash page to entrance the reader. And I'm like, great. Well, I have to drop a bomb when I start a piece. Let's get that reader hooked in there. I do have a 3-act structure, and it's happened subconsciously over time. And then there are times where it's just kind of like this stream of consciousness. It's this wave, and I think that has to do with some Zen training I've done over the years because I've been practicing a lot of meditation. So. Well, as I stated before, why poetry? We're dealing with a versatile medium. Not a lot of people are going to sit there if I hand them a screenplay. Not a lot of people, okay, I know a lot of people binge watch like Netflix, but a lot of that stuff and streaming content is going to be kind of vapid. With poetry, you can shoot from the hip, you can cut to the chase, and I think people are going to get it. It's easier to convey certain ideas and notions through this universal medium. When I first started out back in 2013, I went to the Story Cafe, and at first it felt welcome, and I was like bringing in left-wing poetry, and I didn't feel very welcome talking about class. And I know, and I've heard this with interviews from other writers that America's kind of cowardly when they talk about class. People don't want to hear about class. So, I felt a little unwelcome in that environment. And then I've noticed too, like I would go to events and they're always downtown and they're always in East Town. And I get that, they're the hubs, but there's a lot of gentrification in those areas. And that leaves a lot of people out. And it left someone like me out because my wages were being eaten up by housing costs at the time. So it was hard to even make it out there. And so, I've always kind of felt like an outsider, so to speak. And I get, and I can tell it is a welcoming community. I've always felt, though, that's very middle class. And that really only constitutes about, if you go to the EPI, the Economic Policy Institute, as well as the Southern Poverty Law Center, the middle class really only consists of 20% of the population. Now, I didn't have a lot of experiences because it was I came from a rough background, and maybe I was reading things into it that I saw was maybe being played out subconsciously. They weren't always great, but I did go to this wonderful reading this year hosted by Bloodline, William Braylock. I believe it's called The Love Affair. And it was grand. It was not held, and again, another over-gentrified area. It was just a nice little community center on 28th Street. And it felt very welcoming there. And like I said, you had people from all walks. You had people, I could tell, from all walks of life. I was even talking about class with them there, and they were very receptive. One of the things I plan on doing, and maybe I will do it with a DAC, but we're thinking of doing is starting working words. We want to get the working poor and the working class out there. We want those voices heard that are being drowned out. And that's what we're aiming to do is working words, people from the service sector, or people who have hard jobs. Maybe we should be hitting the West Side, too, in that respect. Poetry can spark the progressive civil disobedience by accentuating the conflict in our society, by making it relatable, by giving you an alternate perspective, but at the same time linking you with that. And that can, again, spur an activism. Someone will maybe hear what you have to say and be like, I've gone through something akin to that. Well, now, in the age of social media, we've seen that happen. We've seen that occur. One of the cool things I've been seeing with the poetry community, too, when we had the fascist coup on January 6th, we were having, or the attempted fascist coup, I should say, we had people in the poetry community getting ready to protest against it, putting out. We were putting out anti-fascist anthologies. One of the things I've had even with Ukraine right now, I'm putting out an anthology with I'm working with artists from Britain, again, poets from Africa. We're all getting in there for Red Cross relief, and hopefully, too. One of the things I'm looking at, one of the things we're really examining in our upcoming anthology, World on Fire, Propagandy, is we're not looking at just another anti-war anthology. We are looking at political propaganda and the industrial, and I'm not talking like Medicare for all. I'm talking like the industrial war machine stuff. This is the stuff we're speaking out against, and the industrial incarceration complex, things of that nature. Oh, yeah, this is like kind of a syrupy story. I'm kind of like this edgy counterculture guy, and so I had this woman a while back, and I really didn't want to publish her book at first. She was a little bothersome. Waiting for Svetlana, one of the coolest books I've put out. I didn't even want to take money from it. She doesn't want to take money, so we donated all the proceeds to the MS Society. She was co-writing, when she finally told me the story behind it, of course I had to publish it. It was very religious poetry. That's something I don't really look into. But she was co-writing a book with her friend. They were both diagnosed with MS. They were both in the hospital together. And I published this book for her. I released it, and I can't believe how much mail we've got. It's one of our top sellers. And she's so happy. Her family's so happy. It's uplifted a lot of people. I didn't know this. My cover artist, I'm not going to give you his name. Sorry. I don't know if he'll want me to do that. His mother suffers from it as well, and she was even thanking me for releasing the book. And here she is, she's buying the book and she's distributing it to people. Another great book. Recently, I just released John Chinaka Nyeki's, I really apologize for that for him, Echoes Across the Atlantic. he talks about his life in Nigeria. And that's an area I don't know a lot about. All I know about is wicked colonialism. And it is wicked colonialism, but I learned about the poverty there. I learned about the dirty politics there, but I also learned about hope. I've learned about the spiritual aspect of his life. And again, people are flocking to that book. I have a lot of people in the UK buying that book. And it's just really cool to put that, you know, I'm seeing people being enlightened about countries they didn't have any idea of. Another guy released, Thank You, Mr. President. It's a series of letters to Saddam Hussein by Bleeding Heart poet, who is an Iraq refugee living in Canada. And again, we learned a lot about Iraq and the occupation from there and what specifically went down in these communities and how even the U.S. occupation just accelerated the decline of the standard of living there. Oh, this is a great story, actually. It's entertaining as hell. So COVID happened. Yay, couldn't leave. Took a bunch of editing jobs, couldn't get unemployment, so just took a bunch of editing jobs with Alien Buddha Press. That opened something up with Concrete Mist Press. I was working with a guy. He goes by the name, he's always changing his name, but Wolf is always in there. He was Wolfman then. So Wolfman is a great poet. I like the guy. We're like best pals. He's, anyway, you're good to you know this story is not going to turn out well. So he started Rogue Wolf Press, and he had a logo, and he's already making merchandise, and he's like, I'm bringing you in as my editor-in-chief, and I can't pay you. I'm like, fine, I'll just do that. I'll edit for you. And we had about 8 clients at the time, and he's starting a literary magazine. I'm the only one editing, and this guy's writing poetry. And we all wrote a book together with 3 other poets. I'm going to get to that part later. And one day he just disappears for 6 weeks. And I got poets asking me, where are my royalties? Where are my author copies? I gave this guy money to give me my author copies. And I'm like, oh shit, I inherited a dumpster fire. What am I going to do? And I tell everyone, relax. I had other people in the small press community from Alien Buddha being like, hey, Mike Zone, if he had a press of this shit would be going down. So because I inherited a dumpster fire, I started a dumpster fire press. That's why you have a flaming dumpster that's why people see a flaming dumpster for a logo. So I started Dumpster Fire Press, and I had some people defect from him. Long story short, he was great that he was glad I held things down for him. But I had also written a book with him and 3 other authors and a painter, and he wasn't publishing it. He had been sitting on it since April. It was October. It was going into November. And I decided to release it. I sold it for $0.10 per page, and I donate all proceeds to the Drug Policy Alliance. I told everyone what was going to happen, and I got their permission. He was upset about it. It caused a schism between us. He had rights to the book. He could have objected to it. He didn't. This is how I got into publishing. I published about 4 people right off the bat. I took half his clients. I didn't mean to take half his clients, but I'm like, well, why don't you stick with Kevin? Okay, why don't you stick with Wolfman? And they're like, well, no, I don't want to be fucked over like Art Keith. And I'm like, oh, Art Keith is going to be cool. If I'm naming authors, it's going to be cool, everyone. And I'm like, oh, okay. And this is how I got into publishing. And one thing I have, too, is I want to differentiate myself from everyone. So all our books are black. I almost have the same cover artist do the art. You look on the back, you have the author's name. Bios are the last page. Blurbs are on the interior. I like to sometimes do a personal introduction for each book too. So shameless plug, everyone. I have a lot of screenwriting stuff coming up. So it's probably going to be exclusively anthologies in the next 2 years. Right, I am publishing prose artists, poets. I have one guy I'm looking at his memoirs about the punk rock scene. Anthologies are my biggest sellers. Poets are a little hard, but yeah, I've published a couple local poets. A lot of my poets are actually coming internationally. So yeah, I've been a I've been a poetry publisher, but I keep saying I'm branching out. We just published our first graphic novel in October. It was way too inappropriate to donate to you guys, but it's from these guys from Portugal. It's like the craziest shit you'll ever see. There's a talking tree, and then there's vampiric, like, lesbian bondage scenes. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have written this. So yeah, we go all over the board. One thing I would really like to get into is more graphic novels. We've been thinking of doing screenplays if some of them don't get optioned, and getting more into pulp. Our tagline is poetry, pulp, punk. And punk is, we're not exclusively punk. Punk is our philosophy. We're accepting of everyone, and we're out there to get information out, which was at the foundations of punk in general. For when I was a kid, it was about the aesthetic. But you'd listen to the old school bands like Sex Pistols and Rancid. And I was like, man, these guys just don't give a fuck. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't give a fuck. But I didn't learn not to care and not say what I wanted until I was like in my mid-30s after I was sued. And that's a fantastic story in it. So actually, that's where a lot of my writing came from. What was dealing a lot with a lot of financial adversity and that. My mother went into a coma the week of my wedding. I'm going to be honest. People didn't want to postpone it, and it somehow turned into a lawsuit. And I wound up defending myself in a court of law. And National Poetry Month. And let's say T.S. Eliot was right. April is cruel. And I think it's because we poets do that to ourselves. Last year, I had some exciting stuff going on where I had a new poet on the blog every day. And that was insane. I released like Death by Punk and Voices from the Fire issue. But I also released another Voices from the Fire issue and 4 titles. I'm not doing that this year because I'm recovering from a kidney infection. So I'm just releasing 4 titles. I'm releasing Roz Washington's second book, All Things Considered. He's a local hip-hop poet, was an electrician, just took off, moved to Arizona. So I'm proud to be releasing that one. Always great. He always has cool pictures that accompany his poetry. Psalm of the Psych Ward is by Ari Whipple. I'm going to be releasing that too. Beautiful art. My cover artist did a fantastic job on that as well. Let's see. We will be releasing by Mel Ray. She's a local artist. David Cope hooked me up with her. And that's still in the works. We have things with her production designer and then my art director kind of clashing. God, I have a third. I can't remember Edwin Wells, another non-binary poet. I'm going to be sponsoring a show in St. Augustine, Florida. It's part of the St. Augustine Poetry Fest. I was invited down there by Chris Bodor, and I published him in an anthology, Childhood's End, and that was fantastic because I took my 2 loves when I was a kid, the Peanuts gang, what happened to them when they got older, followed by Twilight of the Superhumans. You know how your favorite superheroes let you down when you're older. So I got on his radar. He invited me out. I'm going to be hanging out with Damian Rucci, who's part of the New Jersey Poetry Renaissance. I'm going to be on a poetry and politicism panel. I'll be doing a reading and book signing there in like 90 minutes. I don't know how the hell I'm going to be reading poetry for 90 minutes. Is there an audience for that? We'll find out. I'm going to be signing a hell of a lot of books, though, I have a feeling. And DFP is sponsoring a show at Shanghai Nobbies, and that's in St. Augustine, Florida. It's another punk rock club, and we're bringing in these jazz poets. We're bringing all sorts of jazz poets. We're also bringing in Wayne Mason. He's another counterculture poet. I don't forget where he exactly is, but I've corresponded with him like twice. He seems pretty cool, but yeah. It's gonna be an awkward ride from the airport with him because we've only said like 3 words to each other. when I first started out, I was just seeking anyone and publishing. Now, do I purposely like sift through them and turn anyone down for like say being boring and white? No, if the writing is good, I dig it. I don't purposely seek someone out. I just seem to attract people. If you go on my website, you're going to see we're a voice for the voiceless, and I'm about raising those people that are seldom heard, and that's what I strive for. One person in particular that I'm glad I've brought out is Shane Ellis. I think he's in New York now. He was in Florida at the time, and he had some stuff on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I'm liking his pictures. And then he sent me this picture of a phallus one day, and I'm like, oh, it's collage work. I'm like, oh, okay, that's neat. I really like your work. Are you submitting this to me? He's like, oh, do you want me to submit this to you? I'm like, yeah, I really like your work. He's like, wow, okay. And so I've been showcasing his art and his poetry, which can be kind of obscene. And a lot of people, I put out an anthology, Bedroom Anatomy Lessons, and we've got a lot of queer voices in there, and we've got sadness, and we've got everything. We've got a little something for everyone in there, including the people that hate love. But I told him I really want to dedicate an anthology to your art. I really need to get you out there as much as I can. And he's like, all right, cool. So he created a bunch of art for it. And I just made my art director my art director. And now he has to accept all the art submissions. And it's funny. I sent him a bunch of Shane Ellis's stuff. And he's like, dude, what did you send me? This is like highly inappropriate. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's Shane Allison's work. He's like, oh, that's cool. I like his work. And he doesn't always do the sexual material. But again, this is a guy, I feel like a lot of people that I publish are never going to be mainstream. It's about creating a counterculture archive. Poetry counterculture is going to question the narrative. And it's not just going to inspire change, it's going to discuss systematic change. That's what the counterculture looks like. On a multitude of levels. We're going to talk economic, we're going to talk philosophy. Something that goes against the grain of, say, neoliberal capitalism. That's the best way I can put it. From what I've seen, from what I've experienced this year, I mean, COVID kind of shut things down, obviously. I think it has opened some doors in terms of diversity. But I think there's going to be a double-edged sword. It's like money in politics. Sometimes there's going to be a kissing of the ring to get some benefits from it. And that's not something I can compromise with. But like I said, I feel like it's brought the media more to the forefront. And I think there's going to be and I think there's more inspiration. And I think the discussion for systematic change is coming up. And it doesn't just have to be straightforward dialogue, someone on your TV screen in a suit. We can have these discussions whenever and however now. I think one of the greatest moments I had was meeting Roz Washington at the Story Cafe. He and I were the outliers. Like, we were definitely not accepted there, and we just hit it off. And after the Story Cafe, we sat at Rosa Parks Circle, across from each other at a table, and we talked about his book, Boots of My Life, that he wanted to release, and he was sending me poetry and stuff. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're a good poet. Like, we respected each other. Years later, he's getting ready to move to Arizona. I'm like, hey, you remember that book, Boots of My Life? I'm a publisher now. Let's get this book out. And to me, that's my greatest moment in Grand Rapids poetry, is just shooting the shit with Roz Washington at a really dull poetry reading. I mean, I am going to say I did see Azizi Jasper at the Monkey Bar years ago. I wrote a review about that. Azizi Jasper, he's written some fantastic work, you know, and I kind of miss that presence here. Man, you know, my parents were working class. They did the best they could for me. You know, my mother was a Hungarian immigrant and was illiterate. She used magnetic letters to teach me how to kind of teach me how to spell or what little she could read at the time. So you know, she would buy me books of whatever, children's books, and you know, bless that woman who could barely read. Yeah, you know, I got some poetry books from her. So yeah, maybe it was always kind of there, more the comic books than anything, but the idea of reading and looking out there and searching for answers and understanding the world was always there. And like I said, that led me to poetry to convey what I wanted to say. You know, like when you're reading, it's going to set off a chain reaction. You know, you're going to look at, you're reading English well, or you're reading a book in British literature. Well, here you go. You want to understand the historical context. Well, now we're going to look into sociology. Now we're going to look into psychology. Maybe we'll even look into some physics. But that's getting a little crazy. But yeah, so maybe poetry was always there. Maybe existence is poetry itself, like quantum vibrational waves. You know, it's a rhythm. It's a rhythm. It's a language. Yeah, it's been with us our whole lives. You know, it almost sounds like the Force in Star Wars. So I think it's within all of us, I'll say. You know, I grabbed, God, I was just thinking, here's the thing. I write a book, if I write a book, I release it. I kind of don't look at my work. I always look forward. I never really look back. But I do have a couple popular pieces. I am a poet. It was just something I wrote this year. I've been, yeah, it was about being a poet and living that rough Bukowski-esque life. I'm not a big Bukowski fan, but, you know, everyone goes through the Bukowski phase, I guess. And that's a poem that a lot of people like, that does stick out for me, that I love to recite. Another one that I like to write and perform that's been like reprinted several times is America Again. And I have the pieces with me too, if in case you want me to recite them. And that is like about working retail post-COVID and just looking at the culture itself. I was working retail at the time and I was still a relatively new publisher. And good Lord, like trying to upload like a manuscript into Amazon, it was just like, there are people flagging, you know, people are flagging things. And then it's like, I'd prove I had the rights to my work. And then I had to go, and then I'd get another customer service agent. And then they'd be like, hey, you need to resubmit your book. I'm like, okay. So I resubmit my book. And they're like, oh, there's some illegible text. I'm like, there isn't any illegible text. And then they're like, you have to prove you have the rights to this. And this happened like 3 or 4 times. I kept sending him the same information. And it was like, so I started listing every single guy. And finally, I had to send a letter. I talked about getting my legal counsel involved. And I started, and I sent them links that I was showing all the communications on Instagram that they were doing, and that they're saying that I'm not presenting them with the rights to this and that. And I had to bring up a potential libel suit. That's where anal corporate babies came from. And you know, the thing about working retail, that happened. There was a guy with a gun that walked in there, so into the store, and they wanted me to talk to him. But they're like, but remember, he's more scared of you than you are of him. I'm like thinking, this guy's like over 6 foot tall in a Blue Lives Matter t-shirt with a gun in his back pocket, not even holstered. I'm like, almost 5'8", 130 pounds. Yeah, he really wants to talk to the guy with the Medicare for all that. He's real scared of me because I just want to give people health care, you know? So that's where, you know, corporate babies came from, the weird Kafka-esque contradictions of capitalist realism. America again. Masks in the street again. Dirty diaper in the strip mall parking lot. The gulls circle the Chinese buffet's garbage, honking, crashing at the main intersection. Masks off, infections up, mass shootings on. America's back in full swing, baby. Better than ever. Carts of consumption, the doors of American Jesus are open, brushing away golden locks with an AR-15, eating a porterhouse steak and slamming a brew. Killer cops on trial, with no one asking the fundamental question. It's evil. It's racist. It's a byproduct of economic violence. In reality, hunger will further feed it so. Meanwhile, there's another mass shooting. Multiple children down. Back to normal. The new normal. Same as the old. Maybe more guarded. Branded with a friendlier smile. Meanwhile, again, I keep hearing about good guys with guns. Hanging out at the supermarket. Where are they? Assault rifles slung over their shoulders. Strapped sandals and fedoras. I know of one. Lips quivering as he took his dog out behind the shed. Arthritic hips. Rotting teeth. Out of control bladder. Pressed the barrel of his chrome piece against a cataract eye. Shut his own damn eyes tight. Had I been there on the 6th, we would have won, he prayed. This other one, I Am a Poet. It's popular as hell. There's people are like, God damn, Mike Zone, you're a labor poet after this. So, I am a poet. I am a poet, sometimes. Words strung together, stitched into frayed concepts. Maybe they lack meaning, saturated by dead-end philosophies. I am a poet. Hernia tearing further open on a warehouse floor. Badgered at the store by customers and managers alike. Sales floor, stockroom, or at the bar. I am a poet. 5 lines of cocaine, chugging a 5th of whiskey and some wine. Digestive tract arrested, nearly 36 hours out. Bile in the toilet, spit on the floor. I am a poet. Still learning harsh lessons at 41. No longer giving a shit, really. Narcissistic stains on the brain. They killed the factories. I am a poet, but a fool at the same time. It's interesting. I always thought of myself as well. Chris Bodor brought it up to me recently. We were just like shooting the breeze. I'm like, I like to think I'm counterculture, and this is a guy who's an academic. Oh shit, he's gonna be pissed if I say this. He considers himself a labor poet, but I think he teaches at a college. Whatever, that's cool. You can be a labor poet. Sure, whatever you want. Labor poet is, you have your academic poets, they're in the academic life, they write about truth, beauty, all that. Labor poet, we're talking like, we're gonna talk your Ginsbergs, your Bukowskis, we're gonna talk your Roz Washingtons, or maybe, it's people who have worked in the blue collar, who are blue collar, who don't necessarily have the academic training. They're going to be about working life's struggles. It's like years ago, David Cope, who was one of my mentors, former poet laureate, called me a blues poet. And I was like, maybe I am a blues poet. I wrote a poem called Shock Doctrine Bride. And it was just about dealing with the harsh reality of being poor and being jilted and even sleeping under an overpass. And I'm like, blues poet. Yeah, that sounds right. But labor poet, that's what it means to me. Someone who's had to work hard and has had to go through hard times, who isn't part of the 20%. Anyone that's part of the working poor and the working class.